Hey crafty people, welcome back to my channel, and in case you're new here, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. I do paper crafting, card making, junk journaling, and mixed media art. Let's get crafting! Okay, you may have heard me mention in one of my previous videos that I'm feeling the need to do a spring tab-bound booklet, and if you're not familiar with tab-bound booklets, this is the one I did during Christmas in July. And so I do plan on doing something similar in spring colors. I also did one for Halloween, and I'll link both of those videos down below. Now for my first tab bound booklet, I used all digital kits to create the pages for the booklet, and I used Tim Holtz and Sizzix dies. These are chapter 3 dies, and this is an older die. It's just tag shapes. And then for the Halloween one I did, which I have put away somewhere and we'll have to go hunting for it, I used all watercolor paper that I inked with distress inks. For this one, I'm going to do a mixture of the two and some plain cardstock. And so I've got all these things, and oh, this is my little tub of some distress ink dyed cheesecloth, seam binding, and this is some like muslin that I bought off of Amazon. It's in a little roll with little frayed edges that I dyed with distress inks. This is what I'm going to use to create my tabs for this booklet. So that's that. Let's set that aside. And I just realized I left my list because I have done some prep work. As you can see, I've already inked up the ones that are getting like full on like just distress ink. I've done this on camera before. I may have done it for the Halloween one. I don't remember. So I figured this is going to be a multiple part video as it is, and it's going to be long enough that I didn't need to do this on screen. So I've got those pre-done. I've also obviously die cut all my shapes out, and this is a Digital Attic Studio printable. So I did a couple pieces out of the printable. This is actually going to go back. This was a cleanup piece from doing some inking. And then the file folder. Now, let me go grab my list. Because yeah, this is how my brain works. I like listed out everything, organized it, figured out what order I'm going to assemble in, all that good stuff. I've got lots of different die cuts. This is going to be all about, because I'm making it for myself, me just putting together a bunch of stuff that makes me smile, basically. But it should hopefully give you some ideas for things you can do. We're going to do a bunch of different techniques on various pieces. But before we get to the binding part, you want to have your bases fully prepped for decorating. So if you want to do stamping, stenciling, any more inking, like the plain white ones need to get treated, and I've got a bunch of ideas for how I'm going to do those. But anything like that you want to do, it's easier to do now and then just decorate after you bind. And the reason you want to decorate after you bind is because you don't want your tab going over something that you like, that you've decorated with. So you want to put your tabs on before you put your final decorations on. So what we're going to start with is finishing up the bases before we move on to the decorating part. So let's see. I know what I'm doing for this guy. Let's start with that guy. And I will leave a list of all the products I use down below. There are many. So yeah, I will do that. I need to grab a couple things. I will be right back. So I've got my Altenew Super Sticky Grid Mat, which I am loving it. It goes with their stamping platform. I don't have the stamping platform. I just have the mat, which I really like using for stenciling. Heffy Doodle stencil, and it's Cloudy Skies. And so I'm going to use that to create clouds on this tag. And we're just gonna stick that down. I also pulled out, I made this stencil myself, and it's from My Favorite Things Grassy Hillside dye, I think is what it's called. So we're gonna start at the top. I'm gonna start with my lightest blue distress ink, which is Tumbled Glass, for my sky. And I am also gonna grab, because I noticed when I've used the stencil before, I have a bad habit of stenciling too far and getting ink in the spots that I don't want ink. So we're gonna start with our lightest color, and I'm just gonna brush it on. Then I'm going to pull down, shift, cover, and I think I'm gonna do a little more tumbled glass. Pull up my stencil, shift it again, and I think I'm gonna pull in some broken china now, get a little darker. Again, shift my stencil around. Shift. And now I'm gonna pull in some Salty Ocean. And I'm gonna go pretty much almost all the way to the bottom with the cloud, because I found that invariably if I don't, I end up going to do the grass and I have stark white instead of blue behind. And actually what I'll probably do is just, let's see, let me just see if I want my grass to be about there. I think what I may do is just come in and do a light blue over top here. Instead of putting the stencil down, we're just gonna add some blue. I'm just kind of going over the whole thing, blending it. And then we're gonna take our grass stencil and I'm gonna stick it about there. And I'm gonna grab green and I'm gonna do a little twisted citron just to give it a little brightness. And then a little bit of Mowed Lawn. Yeah, I love the sticky mat. Like, I don't even have to hold anything other than the mat because I still have it on the plastic sheet, so it's not like gripping to my table. But I think, there we go. We've got our grass on there. So this side is done. Now for the flip side, I'm gonna do something completely different. So we're gonna stick that down. So I just wanna see what's gonna be on the opposite side for when I pick my colors for this side of the tag. I think I'm gonna go Mowed Lavender. I think that's gonna work because this is what's gonna be on the opposite page for that guy. And just to create an interesting background, I'm grabbing, this is Simon Says Stamps circular lace stencil. That five times fast. Can't even say 5 times fast. And I'm gonna go with some Mowed Lavender. And I'm just gonna stencil all around, pretty much just to add some color and interest to the background on this. See, look, Ma, no hands. Ooh, I like that. And that will be opposite this. I think that looks very nice together. Okay, let's see, we got that one goes. All right, on this one, I do want to add a few more details to it. I'm gonna grab Lost Shadow Distress Ink, and it's Reflections CMS 111, and I'm just gonna grab the scripty stamp. I'm gonna open it up just to make it a little easier to stamp on, but I don't want to stamp on those sides because it won't be the end of the world, but I'm gonna ink. I'm not gonna use a stamping block because again, I don't necessarily want to get full impressions, and I may need to go with some Hickory Smoke. Lost Shadow may be a little too light and getting lost in the mix. Like you can see it if you hold it up. I think I'm gonna pull out Hickory Smoke. I think I want it to show up a little bit more than with than what I'm getting with Lost Shadow. That did not work at all. Either I did not ink it up enough or my Hickory Smoke's getting a little dry, which is a possibility. It's there. It's very faint and subtle. I don't know if you can see it or how well you can see it, but again, the idea isn't to get it stamped so that you can see it. It's to add another layer of texture to the background. I'm just trying to decide. Like this is the fun part, is the, okay, it's getting certain things later on. What I'm gonna put on here is, what did I do? Let's fold up our envelope, and I'm gonna leave the flap open to tuck things in, and because I like adding like a little dangle after that. So I think what's gonna end up going on there is this guy. Once I decide what I'm doing to this guy. So I'm trying to decide if I want to add some more stuff to the background. And I think I do. Just got to figure out what that more stuff is. All right, so I've got out Field Notes, and we're going to just use some from Field Notes and do some stamping to create some interest. And for this, I am definitely going to fold over because I don't necessarily want this for the other side. I am going to grab a stamping block. We're going to try again with Hickory Smoke, and we're going to try to get a better impression. Actually, you know what? I'm going to grab Archival Ink in Hickory Smoke. That's going to be a little darker. It's going to come through a little better. It should stamp a little crisper, and I think that's kind of what I want for there. And I am going to just hold this down. Take that kind of off the side. Oh yeah, I like that. Let's add our butterfly back in. Just kind of seeing where I want something across the bottom. And I'm grabbing this guy. Gonna go with corresponding order. And then I'm stamping enclosure over here. Yeah, I think that's gonna work for me. I also think I want to ink my edges, and I want to ink them using Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide. Yeah, I'm planning on using a lot of gray on this project instead of black, because I think that black's a little too harsh for this project, but that the gray adds a nice touch. I'm actually going to ink the top of this flap area too, like the fold there, and I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side as well. Okay, so apparently today is gonna go about as smoothly as yesterday's filming day went, because I was supposed to do this stenciling on this piece, not the tag, because I was going down the list and I'm like, okay, next up, plain tag. Where's the plain tag? I don't have the plain tag. I thought I cut everything out. It's because I stenciled the plain tag when I was supposed to stencil the coin envelope. So I will redo this off camera. no worries. I realized that this tag will fit into the coin envelope, or if I seal my file folder, because I'm going to seal the file folders to create pockets. If I seal it across the bottom and the top, this tag can fit in to the file folder as well. So I will just save this to use in one of the pockets. I will redo this off camera because you've seen how I did it, so you don't need to see me doing it again. And redo that one. So go me. Now we can do the tag that I was supposed to do the first time around. And I'm gonna pull back over just to kind of help. I figured it'd be nice to keep the colors harmonious as we flow through. So this is purples on here. I am gonna do this guy, and I'm trying to decide. I think this one I'm gonna do some stamping on. And actually, I think I wanna put a base color on first. I'm just trying to decide where I wanna go color-wise for this one. I think I'm gonna go blues, because I love me some blues. So what I'm gonna do first, because I don't want a white background for what I'm gonna do on top, is I am gonna grab Salvaged Patina and just do a very light blue background. And I'm just pretty much just gonna go over the whole thing with Salvaged Patina. I think the problem was I cleaned off the brush and it was a little wet, so that's why you've got a few very dark spots, and now it's coming on much lighter. It's okay. It's all good. This is gonna work fine. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab some peacock feathers. I'm grabbing Tiny Prints CMS 460, and I am gonna ink unevenly because I want this to be very distressy kind of background. So I've kind of inked unevenly, and actually I'm gonna, for ease of handling on this one, stick it on a stamp block, just because I am gonna stamp the whole thing on, but I'm also gonna mist it with a little bit of water. And grab a paper towel. Am I on screen? Let me see what I'm doing over here. Yes. And kind of tap a few spots to make them even lighter. And then I'm gonna flip it over and stamp it down. So yeah, it's darker in spots, it's lighter in spots. I kind of really like that. So that's side one. And I'm just gonna hit it with my heat tool because it's a little damp from spritzing on the stamp, just to dry it all the way. And I don't know how well this handles heat, so we're gonna move that out of the way. All right, flip over. For the back side, I am gonna grab the Ticking and Graining, and it's CMS 475. And I'm gonna grab both of them, and we're gonna create a plaid background because I love me some plaid. So for the first color for our plaid background, I'm gonna grab one of the Ticking and Graining stamps, does not matter which one. I'm gonna grab Squeeze Lemonade, and I am gonna ink this guy up and get more ink on here than I need because the stamp's bigger than the tag. And we're just gonna plop it down. I want a pretty good impression for this one. But you could, of course, do the same technique for this as we did on the other side, where you spritzed it and stressed it and didn't get a full stamped image. And now I am gonna stamp going the other way, and this I'm gonna have to stamp twice for in order to get it all the way across because it's not as wide as it is tall. And I think I'm gonna go with Salvaged Patina And let's try not to ink way more stamps than we need. So, whoop. And we're just gonna stamp, lift, ink again. Line it up about there. And there we go. We now have a plaid background and a stamped background on that side. And I so love the ticking and the graining stamps for creating plaids. Like, it's one of my favorite ways to make a plaid background these days. Love it. All right, that one's done. Okay, so next up, I've got the sack, and since I haven't assembled it, I can do 2 different embossing folders because that's what I want to do. I want to pull out my embossing folders for this one. And so for the front of the sack, I am using, this is a Cuttlebug decorative tile set, and this has got to be one of my all-time favorite embossing folders. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply ink to the raised bits on this side and run it through to emboss it. And I think I want to use a green. I am going to use my VersaFine Clair Verdant, which I don't even remember what prompted me to pick up some VersaFine Clair inks, but I like never use them. So we're going to just swipe some ink on so it's nice and juicy. Got a few spots where it's likely to go through, because what will happen when I run this through the my die cutting machine is we will get ink on certain spots but not others. And I'm just gonna stick this guy down here, close this up, and run it through my embossing machine, and I'll be right back. Okay, and now the big reveal. And see, it's embossed in the debossed, or it's inked in the debossed sections. So there's that guy, and I'm gonna clean this off. Okay, so I did rinse it off, and I do have a bit of staining. I don't know if you can see how well you can see it on there. I'm not bothered by that, but yeah, so I've got some staining. I might be able to clean it off with some stamp cleaner, but I'm not too worried about it because it's staining. It's not going to transfer to the next time I use this embossing folder. Now, for the next one, we're going to experiment, and this is a Cherry Blossom embossing folder by Doris, which is another one that I really like a lot. So I'm going to try, never done this before, don't know how well it's going to work, using distressed watercolor pencils on it. And I'm going to do a little bit of coloring. And the idea here is it should, when I wet it, transfer just on the embossed side. Don't know how well this is going to work. I've never done this before. So it's kind of an experiment. We're going to see how it goes. And I actually am just going to stick this underneath so that I can see what I need to color and just color what I need to color so that we're not here all day. And I'm going to do all the coloring and then add the water, because once we add the water, we're going to need to put the piece in and close the plate quickly. So I did spun sugar for the flowers. That was mustard seed or squeezed lemonade. Shabby Shutters in between. Because yeah, it should just be the lines between the flowers that don't like the outline of the flower that doesn't get color this way, theoretically, if this works. All right, so I now need some water and a brush, and we're gonna activate everything, hopefully, fingers crossed. And well, theoretically you could spritz it with water. What will end up happening if I did that is it might bleed into the spots I don't want it. So I'm gonna try and work fairly quickly at activating the ink on here. And I don't know how well this is gonna work, but worst that happens is it doesn't work and I have to recut a piece of paper. Our problem is we're starting to dry. May have picked something a little too big for this technique, assuming it actually works at all. All right, I'm gonna emboss and we're gonna see what happens. Well, we got a little bit. Not nearly as much as I would have liked, but we did get a little bit in there. So not a complete failure, but not as successful as I was hoping for. So I will probably go back in and hand color it with the watercolor pencils, just so that I get a little bit more color in here. I did get some where I didn't want it. Let's see if I can clean that off. A little bit. I keep getting it where I want it to stay white. Mostly because I'm rushing instead of being careful in doing it. And this is not exactly the ideal paper for watercoloring since it's a plain. But I'm gonna go ahead so that you don't have to watch me ink this whole thing. Go in and color my flowers, and then I'll be back, and the green around the edges. Okay, so I finished coloring it, and for the center part I just went over the tops with some fossilized amber watercolor pencil. So not exactly what I was going for, but pretty good, and I can live with that. And I did just ink some spun sugar on the inside of that because when the bag gets assembled, it's going to be showing. I do want to ink along the top with, I think, some Shabby Shutters, just so that the spiky bits stand out more. We've got that lovely edge, and so that will cause it to show up a little bit better against the pale pink. I think I'm gonna do it like this on this side, but on the flip side, I think I'm gonna use Mowed Lawn just to get those, the pretty edge to show up a little bit better. And I'm gonna quickly glue this one together since I'm not gonna do anything else to it. And I'm gonna go like that. Okay, so I know this seems strange, but I want this piece, which is going on the inside, to sit on top of the two side pieces, because if I have it underneath, there's a chance that stuff will catch on it going into the pocket, if that makes any sense. So I'm just gonna use a little art glitter glue, apply some ink here, or glue. Line it up and stick that down. All right, I'm just gonna keep that on top. Apply glue here and here. Push the side down, the bottom down, the top down. So there we go, that sack is done. And I'm gonna set that aside and we're gonna move on to the next one. Okay, so I've pulled some stuff out to hopefully speed this process along. And for this one, I wanna do some background stampy bits. So we're gonna set that down. I'm gonna grab Entomology CMS 328. And I'm just gonna grab the script stamp from that. And we're gonna kind of stamp that down. And I think I'm gonna use Hickory Smoke because I don't need it to be like a full complete stamp. And actually I'm gonna use a stamping thing just because it's, you know what? We're just gonna wing it. I'm gonna flip this sucker over and kind of go like that. And again, it's just adding some background texture. And I'm gonna go like so on there. And like so on there. And that's it for that stamp. But I also wanted to add in, and I think I'm gonna pull out Peacock Feather Distress Oxide. And I want to stamp. This is from Ticket Booth, which is CMS 337. Down here. And then I'm gonna stamp just part of this guy. So I'm just gonna ink the number on it. Let me verify placement. Yeah, just up here. So she's gonna go there with her umbrella. That one's done. This file folder is gonna go like so. And so I want to do some stamping on here as well. And this is from Attic Treasure CMS 123. And I'm gonna do that in Hickory Smoke. And then what I want to stamp is, this is from Creative Expressions by Sam Poole, and it's Butterfly Walk CEC 957. And I'm going to take this one and stamp it down here. And I think for this one, I am going to use the Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide because I want not quite as dark as I was hoping for, but is good enough. I am also going to stamp on a label of some sort to stick on there, collector of beautiful things from this set, but I'm gonna do that later. All right, next up for stamping. Now for our little birdie here, what I want to do is stamp him with a plaid stamp. And this is from Perfect Plaids, that's CMS 383. Yeah, I'm using a ton of stuff from my stash for this project. You should just use what you have in your stash. Like, you don't have to use all the same things I'm using. This is very much I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I'm just playing with because I'm in the mood to play with them kind of thing. And I'm gonna grab some shaded lilac. Now have a plaid bird. And I've got a branch for it. And he's gonna go there. And I think I was gonna do some background stamping on this. I actually think I was planning on using this one on here, not on the other piece, but that's okay, we can use it on here too. This time I think I'm gonna go with the Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide. And so I'm just gonna ink it up, and I am going to spritz it a little. I'm gonna grab a clean paper towel and do that, because that'll lift up some of the wet spots. Also gonna grab a brush, dip it in some water, and do some splatters of water. Hit it with my heat gun. And then pat it again with the paper towel. Which will pull some away. And then we will have our birdie. And I think I need to ink around his edges to make sure he really pops. And I do have a branch that I'm going to use on here, so there'll be that as well, and some flowers. But right now I just want to go through and get all of our bases done. Okay, next up is I also have, for the opposite page, I'm going to do a kitty cat. And for the cat, I'm going to stamp the other plaid in peacock feathers. So it's that same stamp set, it's just a slightly different plaid. It's a smaller plaid. And we're going to ink this with peacock feathers. So we've got our cat, and the cat is actually going on this side of the sack, which I'm going to use a 49 in Market. It's the Color Swatch Peach Rub-On, and I am just going to do that to add a little bit more interest to the background. Or I went off the edge a little over here. We'll just have to cover it up later. All right, we've got a few. All right, I'm just gonna press those down. And I've got a few little globby dots over here. Let's add them. I can erase that. Oh, that worked good. All right, so that's done. Okay, for this one, I am gonna pull out my Misty, the file folder. And what I'm stamping is, it's the Floral Trims CMS 461. I wanna stamp it like so. So I think I've got enough space to stick a magnet there, and kind of there, and down here to hold the piece in place. And we're gonna pick up the stamp, I am going to use Archival in Black Soot for this, because I think maybe gray. Let's see how it works with gray, since I can stamp again. I forgot that I should take the spongy bit out for stamping with thick stamps, because it makes it easier to work with. Oh, I actually like the gray. I think we're gonna go with that. All right, the other side, I'm actually gonna stencil the same way I stenciled this tag, so I'm gonna do that off camera. But what I do wanna do is color this, and I think I wanna use my distress watercolor pencils, and I am gonna go in and color. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'll show you what I'm gonna do for one of the flowers and some of the leaves, and then color the rest of it off camera, because otherwise we'll be here forever. And this video is already, I think, ridiculously long probably. So just went on and added a little of the pink, and that's spun sugar. And this is not watercolor paper, it's just regular cardstock. So I'm trying to be very light-handed with my water application. A bunch of crumbs over here. I'm just gonna wet them. Some Kitsch Flamingo. And for the center of the flower, I'm going to grab fossilized amber. I think I'm going to grab some crushed olive for our leaves. And then also add a bit of peeled paint. And that's what I'm going to do pretty much. Although I'm going to take some creative license, because I think I'm going to have that one pink and do that one purple and maybe that one in blue. Because, you know, it's my project. I can do it whatever colors I want. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll be back once that's done. All right, so we've got just a couple more bases to finish prepping before we can assemble this sucker. And I grabbed this from the Attic Treasures, which I've mentioned before. So, and again, I'm going to use Archival Hickory Smoke ink. I think I'm going to stamp again just to get this guy a little darker. I'm going to set that aside and let that dry, and we've got one more background piece that I want to do some random background stamping on. Pull that mat back over, and it's the very back page, and I've grabbed this stamp from Faded Type, the CMS 397, and again I'm using Hickory Smoke, Distress Oxide. I'm just gonna stamp it in a few places kind of randomly. And And I'm gonna splatter some water on it again. Give it a second to reactivate the ink. And clean it off with some paper towel. And I think there's one more stamp I want to grab. And I think we're going to stamp that. And it's not going to get all of it on there, but I'm okay with that. And that again, I'm going to use the Distress Archival Ink. All right, I'm going to set that aside. Okay, so I am going to show you, oh, and I did off camera, I went ahead and did the coin envelope and stenciled the back, and I wasn't thinking and should have folded that up when I did the stenciling, and yeah, so I'll figure something out when it comes time to decorate if I want to address that. And I did, so I went ahead and put together everybody, and on past ones, I've stitched the file folders closed, but I don't want my messy stitching on this one. So I'm skipping the stitching this time around. And on the back, I went ahead and stenciled because I'm going to do something similar on this one as I'm doing on that page, and wasn't paying attention and stenciled it upside down. So when it comes time to decorate, I'm going to turn this into the top of a tree and just add like some die cut grass at the bottom, and a trunk, and work that out. But yeah, I was so not happy when I got to that and realized what I had done. So I've got my pieces all ready and set to the side. I'm going to show you the basics for assembly by attaching a couple pieces together. So for the first piece, and I'm using this to help with sizing because it's smaller, so I want my pieces spaced properly to go along with a smaller one, because look, I've got all this extra room on these. So if I place my tab too high, like if I place the tab up here, it wouldn't catch on the envelope. So I need to make sure my tab placement correlates with where the envelope will sit. So, and what you're gonna want is, for your first piece, I'm gonna use 2 tabs. For the second piece, I'll use 1 tab. Mostly because with the envelope being so small, it's not big enough to handle 3, because if these pieces were bigger, I'd probably do 3 tabs and 2 tabs. So basically, your first one's going to have the most tabs, in this case 2, and then the next one will have 1 less tab, and it will make sense when I assemble it. I will also include links to my previous tab binding videos, where I think the Christmas one I do the whole book on the video, whereas this one I'm just gonna get this started, and I'm not sure what I did with Halloween. All right, so that's gonna be my tab placement. I'm going to leave the envelope in place for now, lift this guy out, and I'm gonna apply glue to that portion of my tab. And they are about 1 inch wide, and I'm not sure how long they are. I didn't think to measure. Give me a sec and I'll measure it on one of the other ones. Like one of the other pieces I have, to let you know. So this piece is gonna go on like so. So I can take that out of the way. It was just there for placement. I am gonna make sure it's glued down all over. So just add a little bit more, and I'm using Fabri-Tac because I'm using fabric and it works better, but you can use art glitter glue. Will actually glue fabric. It just usually takes a little bit longer for it to grip. And I'm making sure everything's glued well because this is what's going to hold everything together. So we want to make sure we've got plenty of glue and our tabs aren't going anywhere. My file folder's coming in next. It's going to sit here. And so our next tab, which they are, looks to be about 1.5 inches long. And that's just basically, I went with the width of this. So what I need is to use these tabs for the placement because it needs to go between them. And then I can move this at, let's leave that there. So that's where it's going to get placed. I'm going to set my next piece down and apply glue here. So let's just get the tab started on its way. And then I'll add more glue just to make sure, again, it's nice and secure. I wouldn't be as worried about how much glue I was putting on if it was going to just be decorative. All right, now we're going to flip this over. And we're going to wrap the 2 tabs around. So the 2 tabs are going to come up and around and come over here. And we're not going to do anything with that tab just yet. I feel like I need to do a 3rd one because that's where you finally see the full attaching process, if that makes any sense. And I did not cut enough tabs to do that. All right, so that, just got a loose string. I'm just making sure I don't glue that under the tab because that might mess up how our tab works. Or how our pages turn, I should say. And then this one will go here, and it needs 2 tabs on it, which are going to cover up a lot of that stamping. I wasn't thinking about that. Oh well. And so I'm just going to cut 2 1-inch strips off. And I'm going to place them pretty much in the same spot as those tabs. Add a little glue just to get us started. Now I'm not gluing these to this, I'm gluing them to this guy. I did that and I forgot what we need to do. Oh no, that's right. Yeah. All right, and I'm gonna finish gluing those on. And we will flip that over and line those up with the previous tabs. And then this tab will come up and get glued on here. And then I will just keep doing that for each piece, alternating between 1 tab and 2 tabs. So this will get 1 tab, and so on and so forth till I get the whole book assembled together. And then once I get it all assembled, we'll come back and do a whole heck of a lot of decorating because there's so much to decorate, so much space to decorate. All right, so that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that let YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.